Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. Gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Tuesday morning, November the 7th, to you and yours. We're already a weekend of November. It's kind of crazy. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Drew Hicken is on the other side of the glass making things work. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm just fine. Appreciate you, my friend. Of course, we appreciate you guys for listening as well. Thanks for waking up with us here at 6 a.m. on 97.9 ESPN Radio or streaming over your mobile device, the TuneIn Radio app. Of course, the WTSM app is our own creation. We think it's great. You should use it whenever you can. Speaking of that WTSM app, you can use it to listen to replays of this show. You can use iTunes, Podcast Republic, warchantradio.com, YouTube, all these different places you can find this show. Make sure you're using them. And if you like the show, rate and subscribe us. It always helps us out when you leave yourself a 5-star review for us. And, of course, when you subscribe to the show, it gives you a fresh, brand new episode every day when the episodes drop and hit. You don't have to worry about looking for us or going for it. It's a convenience move more than anything, and it helps you out tremendously. Finally, you want to get in contact with us, radio@warchant.com. That's your email address to do it. At Wake Up War Chant is your Twitter account to get this thing done. So let's start like this. Have you ever had your friends maybe try to get you on a blind date? Or back in the day when you were growing up, did your parents ever try to get you to be friends with one of their kids or one of their friends' kids? You're into something similar, like, well, honey, you both like video games, or you're both good in school, or, you know, if it's in the dating world, it's, well, you both have similar jobs, you're in similar careers. We really think you'd hit it off well. And then you meet the person, and, you know, if it's a date, maybe you're just into completely different things. Maybe your politics don't line up. Maybe you like sports and they don't. Maybe, who knows? And you know, when you're a kid, maybe it's, well, they're more theater kid and you know, like to play pickup basketball, or they like video games and you don't, whatever it is. At the core, you like the same things. At the core, the interests are similar. At the core, you want the same thing. But there's just so much difference between what you are, how you accomplish those things, that it just doesn't seem like it should work. Sometimes I feel like Florida State and Clemson are that. They're united by this one thing, that they're both really good at football, that they're very committed to football, that they're locked down on that. But you know what? Obviously, Clemson's fan base is a little more southern. Obviously, the way Clemson runs their program is very, very different from the way that Florida State runs theirs. And even over the years, to me, no matter who the coaches were, whether it be Bobby versus Tommy, whether it be Bobby versus Dabo for a couple of years, and, of course, Dabo versus Jimbo, the three, well, I guess you could say the span of coaches that in which you could consider this a rivalry. I mean, because until Tommy Bowden got to Clemson, you could say, and if an older Noles fan wants to correct me here, Clemson was just kind of the game that was like, oh, yeah, they're good. We ran the Pontruski against them once. I mean, it was the Bowden Bowl that really turned this into a quote-unquote rivalry. But the thing is, over the years, I think a resentment comes from the envy of both of these schools now. Not just Clemson for Florida State, because Clemson hadn't had success in a while. Now, Clemson's the big dog on the mountain. Clemson's cashed in. Clemson's won their national title, and now Clemson's the top of the ACC. Clemson's the folks that everybody wants to talk about at ACC kickoff in Charlotte when all the collective ACC media get there. Clemson's the team that everybody wants to talk about on SportsCenter and on College Football Live, and anytime you open up a national article. It's a place that Florida State should be. That's where the Noles should be. But currently, that's the space that Clemson occupies. I think to an extent that's something that can foster a rivalry, make it grow, make it build. So maybe these two teams that were put together in the best intentions, and obviously, of course, the obviousness of Bobby and Tommy coaching against each other for a little over a decade, have somehow, some way created a rivalry. Maybe one that's far more respectful than Florida State, Florida, Florida State, Miami, or Georgia Tech, Clemson, or Clemson, South Carolina. But a rivalry nonetheless that's built out of, regardless, throughout the past 6-7 years, one of those teams will leave that stadium saying, I want what you got. And what you got is being the top of the ACC and being in the driver's seat and what's become one of the better conferences in college football. Saturday's game is going to be no exception. Florida State has no chance of getting what Clemson has, but it does have a slight chance of ruining what Clemson has. You can't always be on top, even with this rivalry. But there comes a rare opportunity to play spoiler. I'm interested to see if Florida State has that opportunity, considering how they looked like they cared against Syracuse. I'm certainly not calling for the upset here, but what I am calling for is, can Florida State continue to look like they care? Can they play inspired football? And can they go up against one of the best teams in the country and at least make them sweat for a bit?
I think as long as Clemson doesn't jump on them like 14-0 real quick, I think it's going to be, you're going to look up in the third quarter and it'll be a tight game and you'll go, oh my gosh, maybe we got a shot here. And then Clemson will just kind of coast away. That's kind of how I expect it to go, because I think that Florida State's defense really does have the firepower to hold this Clemson offense in check. Clemson's been held under 30 points at least 3 or 4 times this year, but Florida State's offense is just not going to put up 30 points against that Clemson defense. I would be surprised if they even got out of the teens, to be honest with you. So I think that's where the real problem lies, is that if you really want a chance to win this football game, there's going to have to be some big explosive plays on Florida State's side, probably a turnover. You might have to get a touchdown from either special teams or from the defensive side of the ball. Or Clemson's just going to have to give you a really short field one of the times, because I really just don't feel like Florida State has the offense to pull it off. I do think the defense will keep it in them for long enough, like I said, as long as it doesn't get, because if it gets 14-0 quick, I really could see them just saying screw it. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm intrigued by the game just because there really is absolutely nothing to lose for Florida State other than, possibly you're losing any cushion you have at a bowl. I mean, if you win this game, you're going to a bowl. So that's a way to look at it, I guess. But again, I'm just not necessarily sure in Death Valley the way that James Blackman's been trending and the rest of this offense. You're losing more and more offensive linemen. We still don't know the status of Derek Kelly, I don't think.
Of course, there's a situation with Josh Ball that's a brewing that,
I don't know.
We really don't have a ton of facts and details at the moment. So, I mean, we're not going to talk in depth on it today. But, I mean, I think most folks who are listening to us know that that's a thing by now.
Right. And that's, so, again, it's just, it kind of only continues to get worse and we don't even know if Auden, you would assume, but you don't know for sure if Auden Tate's playing in this football game. I don't think that's been. I know Jacquez said he's going to give it a go, but he's going to be far from 100%. Listen, I'm sure his knee injury wasn't as bad as people thought it was, and this and that, and he is back in 2 weeks, and that's awesome. But the kid did just have knee surgery 2 weeks ago. It really doesn't matter what it was. I'd be surprised if he was running 100%, but maybe he will. I don't know. I just know that for Florida State to win this football game, or really even have a chance late in the fourth quarter, a lot of things are going to have to go their way.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that kind of is the other hand of this. While you're excited because it is Florida State Clemson, it is that you get to play this game that is almost always fun, regardless of how it works out. I think what does kind of drive you nuts here is that right now the only goal you've got is to make a bowl game. And a lot of folks feel like you can't win this game. And I do feel like there is almost a sense from the fan base of just like, yeah, can we fast forward through this one so we can beat Delaware State and then cross our fingers that we beat Florida. It almost feels it's weird in that in getting the pulse of the fan base more than anything. Having to play this game this weekend seems like a nuisance in that it's not going to help you accomplish anything because most people don't believe you're going to win.
I will say this though, and maybe that Syracuse win is bigger for this team than a lot of people want to give it credit for because they finally pulled out a game that was close in the end. Granted, it wasn't exactly the way that you wanted it to be. Syracuse lost it more than you won it, but you still won. And you go to Clemson, you're 3-5. Clemson has absolutely no breathing room whatsoever. The pressure is going to be on them. Will they start to get a little shaky near the end of that football game if it's tight? When Florida State has absolutely nothing to lose and Clemson has absolutely everything to lose. I don't know. You've seen Clemson perform in these tight situations, but again, we've talked about it a lot of times when Florida State's going up these types of teams. It really doesn't matter how bad Florida State has played this year. Florida State athletically will still match up with anybody because they're still Florida State. Granted, they've played terrible. We all know that. We're not good, but they have the athletes to run and play with Clemson. That's the end of story. No matter who's hurt, they have the dudes to do it. So if they're able to keep this thing tight late, Clemson also, by the way, has a terrible kicker. I think their first string kicker got hurt or something like that. So the guy that they have in there, it's a big reason why they lost that Syracuse game, other than the fact that Kelly Bryant got hurt. That's another thing. Kelly Bryant, they were much like us. You had Francois, and then it was who else is going to play. They had a second string guy, but when he goes in there, obviously they're not even close to the same team offensively. We saw them really, really struggle when he came in. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. I'm not sure if Kelly Bryant's back to 100%. He probably is. He looked pretty good in that NC State game, but that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Oh yeah, you currently have to keep your eye on all those things and all those situations. But this is a fascinating one. This is an interesting one. It's not like last year where you felt like you were playing really good football after you stumbled out of the gate. It's not like the year before where, yeah, sure, this is a rebuilding year, but you know what? Why not? If we win this thing, we can get into the playoff. How does Florida State respond to what has been the quote-unquote the game on their schedule literally probably since around, 2011, 2012? So for the last 5-6 years, how does Florida State respond for the game that usually kind of projects how their season goes in the ACC when we already know how their season's gone in the ACC? We already know how all these things are going to end up for Florida State. How do they respond? Because, you said Florida State wins a close game last week. Well, look at Florida State's other two wins. Duke, close game, close win. Other team has the ball at the end with a chance to score. Wake Forest, close game, close end. Balls with the other team. Inside a minute, chance to score. Florida State's all three of their wins have been squeakers at the last second against inferior competition. Can Florida State hold their own against outside of Alabama and maybe even above Alabama? Regardless, depending on who you want to talk to, the best team they've played this season. Especially because there's the thing about Alabama. It's great that you played them. Played them at Bryant-Denny, or you didn't play them at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're going to Clemson, a road environment the likes of which you really have not seen this year. When you think about the true road games that Florida State, this team, has played, they've gone to Chestnut Hill, Wallace Wade Stadium, and BB&T Stadium, none of which anywhere remotely close to what they're going to see at Clemson on Saturday.
I tend to agree with you. I think for Florida State, though, you have to look at some of the games that Clemson's played this year, and you have to feel like you at least have a shot. You could look at that NC State game, really. NC State's right there until that late Finley interception where Clemson's able to cash in and end up winning by 7. But NC State's going in to score at the end of that football game. They had that illegal shift, got moved back, ends up throwing a pick on about the 3 or 4 yard line. But you've played teams that have played with Clemson. You just beat Syracuse, who beat Clemson. Like I said, Kelly Bryant was out of that game. I think they missed about 3 really chip shot field goals. But that's how you lose. That's what happens. And so listen, it's just as easy for Florida State to go in here and lose by 21 plus as it will be for them to be in a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. I really have no idea what we're going to see on Saturday. I think that's what's kind of exciting about it. And they're, like I said, as a fan base, there's no pressure on us. You're pretty certain you're probably going to lose the game. But, what if you don't? And it's something that's fun to watch. And I would really like to see maybe James Blackman grow a little bit here in a big road start. Because at some point he's got to start picking up some momentum going into next year. Because, like I said, right now he's kind of just on a downward trend. Granted, I think that's for a lot of other factors that are around him. The wide receiving core, the offensive line, this and that. You lose Jacquez Patrick, another veteran presence out there, about the only one you have. So, again, it's just going to be interesting to see. But Florida State has not covered a spread all year, I don't think. I'm pretty sure of that. So I know the spread seems big to a lot of people. Me at first, I see it. Oh, my gosh, 18 points. That's just – it almost seems disrespectful. But then you really think about it, and you said, well, what would you –
oh, yeah, we're 3-5.
Yeah, what would you set the line at if it were you? And I think originally I said anywhere from 17 to 20 points would make sense to me, especially at Clemson. So we'll just have to see what this team's all about. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we already know what this team is. We are who we are. We're 3-5. You're 8 games into the season. It's just, are you going to be able to come up with a little bit something extra on Saturday, make some plays that you haven't necessarily been able to make all year up to this point?
Well, we're certainly going to find out. Rivalry Saturday sometimes brings out the best in teams. Can they hang in there? That's all I want to know. I don't want to know if they can win, because I think we all pretty much know that, barring a couple crazy things, the answer is no. But can you hang in there? What have you learned this season? What do you feel like you can build on for the future? We're going to talk about it a little bit later. Ira's got a nice little piece somewhat about the freshmen for the rest of this season in this game. But first of all, we got you caught up on all the things that are happening in the world of sports and all the stuff that happened last night. Let's go. That's why you're sleeping.
Hello. Good morning. Wake up. Wake up. Wake me up. Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
We start in the NFL, Monday Night Football. It's the Lions over the Green Bay Packers, 30-17. Another loss without Aaron Rodgers. Brett Hundley's an okay backup, but not good enough. And the Lions are just rolling. And they get one at Lambeau Field, a place where Detroit does not win much. Good for them. I think there's been so much love for the Vikings throughout this season. People kind of forget the Lions are pretty good. And this is a win that puts them back in that NFC North conversation, especially with Aaron Rodgers out for the rest of the season. In the NBA, it's the Boston Celtics narrowly defeating the Atlanta Hawks on the road, 110-107. Brooklyn gets a win over the Phoenix Suns, 98-92. That out there on the West Coast. And finally, Golden State holds serve at home against the Miami Heat, 97-80. Finally, we roll on over to the NHL, where last night it was the Rangers over the Blue Jackets 5-3. The Washington Capitals get themselves a win over the Coyotes 3-2 in overtime. 4-3, that's Toronto over the Golden Knights in a shootout at home. Boston Bruins over the Minnesota Wild 5-3. Winnipeg gets a win in Dallas 4-1. And finally, Detroit goes to Vancouver and snags a 3-2 victory. It's more FSU-Clemson talk, and you're going to hear a little bit from head coach Jimbo Fisher at his press conference yesterday. After this, it's Wake Up Port Champ on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Can't hear Immigrant Song now without thinking about the trailer for the new Thor movie, which I have yet to see. Looks really, really good. I have, however, seen the 30 for 30 that's premiering tonight, Nature Boy. It's really good. You should check it out. Not often one to shamelessly plug something on the mothership, but I have seen it. It's good. It's worth your time. Check it out tonight. But that being said, you've heard of what I think about this game. You've heard what Drew thinks about this game. Jimbo Fisher kind of got asked about this game and the rivalry aspect of it, what it means to the conference and all that. He was asked about that at his press conference yesterday. Here's what he had to say about it.
You guys have had a lot of great games with Clemson in your tenure here. And
yeah, I've just been watching them all. I've been phenomenal ones. High-scoring ones, low-scoring ones. I mean, we've won some shootouts, 49-38, and we won 51-something, and then 23-17, 23-13, 16. I mean, there's been some phenomenal games.
Going on that theme, can you kind of elaborate on, how this rivalry has helped shape the rise of the ACC and, what Clemson's rise has meant to the conference as a whole?
Oh, I think it has. I think their rises came from their commitment to football. I think they've been committed, but their administration has done a tremendous job of spending and doing and building, and not just building, but all the things behind the scenes to do it. I know their AD very well, and he's done a great job, and Dabo's done a great job. Their vision to do things, and then they got good players and got good tradition. I think us and them have, in the beginning, have pushed that, but now this league has become Miami's so great. You see NC State playing so well. Virginia Tech has had great tradition. Pitt and all those guys, all those people are doing a great job. Louisville, I mean, you just go down Georgia Tech. I mean, you go through the history of it up and down, and our league gets better and better, and Clemson has been a huge part, and right now they've done a great job.
Couple things there. First of all, my man just couldn't resist bringing up facilities, could he? He just can't let that go. It is kind of something else. It's something to chuckle at. But overall, he's certainly right about that second point, or his final point. Rising tides raise all ships. And the reason that the ACC is doing so well is because it had to play catch-up. Because when Florida State and Clemson are rolling around and having all the fun and winning all this bowl money, well, you've got to compete better too. If you want a chance at some of that stuff, you got to start winning too. So the money, the infrastructure, it all comes in for the rest of that. And then finally, he's right about another thing. Florida State and Clemson have played a lot of good games since Jimbo Fisher's been here. Of course, 2013 being the outlier for the casual fan, but of course, Florida State fans rather enjoyed it. And even then, it was pretty spectacular to watch, at the very least, if you were a casual fan, just in that you looked at it and saw, wow, they can do that. Dang. Because Clemson's pretty good. Clemson would go on and beat an Ohio State team, and a lot of people thought would be playing for the national championship at the beginning of that season. They did that in the Orange Bowl. But what is spectacular about this is that, Florida State and Clemson staffs, outside of that first year with Dabo, 2010, he would end up changing his staff after that. But from then on, Florida State and Clemson have not had a ton of staff turnover. Florida State had their bit of a turnover in 2012, but they've pretty much remained the same in their philosophy and what they do and how they want to do it, and yet they've played every type of game under the sun. 2012 was a ridiculous shootout. 2013 was a ridiculous blowout. 2014 was sloppy on all accounts for both teams. 2015 was pretty sound outside of 2 turnovers from FSU. They have played every type of ball game imaginable, and I think that's what's made this such a fun game for television, in that you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get talent on both sides of the ball. You're going to get the one guy who's all business on one sideline and the other guy who, is high fives and jumping jacks on the other. You're going to get those two contrasting styles. You're going to get the talent. But when it comes to the actual type of ball game, when it comes to what are we going to see from bell to bell for the next 60 minutes, it's often hard to predict. I think that's part of what makes this thing and this game so much fun, is that when you come out, Drew, you never know, are we playing a shootout or are the defenses going to get going? Do the offenses have something for each other, or is this just going to be a knockdown dragout? What type of game am I getting into?
Well, if you're Florida State, you hope it's one of those low-scoring games because you just don't have a shot in a shootout in this one. I'll go ahead and, if there's one thing I know for certain, it's Florida State's not winning a shootout in this game. Again, but that's what I was talking about earlier. It's just you really just don't know what you're going to see on Saturday. Clemson obviously is the more steady team at this point, but Florida State has just shown that they can play with the best of the best, and they can play right there with the worst of the worst too. So you really just don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be interesting to see in Death Valley. I will say one thing. We all make fun of Jimbo a little bit for his plugging of facilities at any and all times. To be honest with you, though, he's right. If you want to be elite and you want to be near the top, you need those little extra things, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be honest with yourself, the kids care about it. And granted, it might not be the difference if a kid really loves your school and goes somewhere else and sees really cool facilities. He's not going to go commit there. But if you got something that's right near the top, you never really know what could push a kid over the edge. I think football facility is a big deal, and we'll see what really happens with that. Again, he might be a little aggressive on that, but how is he supposed to feel when Clemson's already got one, Florida's already got one in the works? Makes sense to me.
Overall, Florida State, Clemson, it's a game that has been a streaky series at the very least for this last little bit, especially after Florida State broke the habit in 2013, because until 2013, Florida State and Clemson had traded wins basically outside of 2006 when Clemson would win in Tallahassee. The home team almost always won this game. And then 2012, 2013, 2014, Florida State, woo. Clemson, 2015, 2016. Is it 2017? I mean, I think most people would imagine so. But it's been a fun, streaky series. And it's been one where there's always kind of been, I don't want to say a clear heads-up favorite, but, 2012, a lot of people expected Florida State to win that game because it was at home. 2013, there was a lot of outside buzz towards Clemson, but the people who'd watched Florida State closely knew what that team was and knew what that team could accomplish, and a lot of confidence started to come towards Florida State's side in 13. 14, even with the Winston suspension, people felt like Florida State was the better team, especially because Dabo Swinney somehow, unforgivably, was still rolling Cole Stout out there as the starter for Clemson at that time when Deshaun Watson was sitting on the bench. They make the change in that game. That Florida State-Clemson game, even though Clemson loses the ball game, is one of the most important Florida State-Clemson games from a Clemson perspective that's ever been played. Because that's when Dabo Swinney finally pulls the trigger, says, here's Deshaun Watson, and I think to an extent changes his program forever. It's basically Florida State, Georgia Tech in, 1992, when Florida State finally runs the Kentucky Derby offense with Charlie Ward, except Florida State came back and won that game. Clemson just didn't get the W.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I remember that game. I remember vividly. I want to say it was Ronald Darby. It was down near left side, maybe gets burnt on a go route again, and Deshaun just drops an absolute dime in there for a touchdown late. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, that kid came in there and did not blink in Doak in a close game as a true freshman that he didn't even start in. I thought to myself that that's probably the kid who's going to get them a national title. I thought he was their Jameis Winston. That's how I felt. But again, recency bias would say that you would feel that way anytime you see a great performance right as Jameis is still there. But that's just what it felt like. And in the end, that's kind of what it ended up being. They were really a player or two away from winning 2 national titles with them. So Deshaun Watson's a great player. I'm glad he's gone. I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough. More on the other end. It's Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table.
Darn pop-ups and video ads.
Are you wasting your time again on clickbait FSU updates that are bloated down with ads?
Yeah. And after crashing my computer, the information isn't even up to date. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with the Seminoles?
For the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer right now.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
Use the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Nobody has more accurate and timely information on the Noles than WARCHANT.com.
WARCHANT.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Well, 'cause 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 'cause
Lost in just getting the W if you're Florida State on Saturday was one thing that our own Irish Chaffel was quick to point out about yesterday, and that's that some freshmen were able to step up and make some plays on defense, slide into their roles, and, well, you saw a couple of those guys that, maybe you thought, where are these guys? Where are they a little bit more? And a couple guys who maybe even been on the field and just have not had as impactful a play as you'd have liked, but there was a lot of defensive talent there that's very, very young and true freshmen from the class of 2017 on the field. And we'll start with a guy in Hamza Nasruddin, who a lot of people thought, why is he not playing by now? Why is he not making an impact by now? He has a chance to go in there. He does, and he plays a pretty solid game. Outside of the mistake where he almost swats the ball back out of the end zone, yeah, you know the play I'm talking about. Maybe not great. Stanford Samuels III, I believe we talked a little bit about him yesterday, Drew. He kind of plays with a little bit of what for. There's some anger to the way he plays that game, and it's a little similar to what his dad has. I quite like it. It's a lot of fun to watch.
I got to be honest with you, just the way that I've seen Tavares McFadden play a lot of times this year, some of the fire that Stanford comes in with at times, it's refreshing. I'll put it that way. Tavares, obviously, I just really don't know what's going on with him. He had such a good year last year. I thought maybe, it was just a game or two funk, but, he has strung together about 4, it seems like, ever since the Miami game almost, just like really bad performances. And he just, I know it's his demeanor to walk around out there like he just, isn't really, doesn't really care that much. That's just kind of how he carries himself, which is okay if you're out there making plays. But it just so many times I almost see him. It almost looks like he's just isolating himself, even when the defense is out there making big plays and whatnot. It's all a little weird to me. It's all a little strange.
Yeah, the whole thing's odd. The way this season's gone, when it just kind of looks like, regardless of what's going on around, that's something that worries me about this game on Saturday. Because if he's not coming to play, Clemson's going to know that. That's a smart staff that knows who and what to exploit. It doesn't matter who's quarterbacking for Clemson when it's just, listen, throw 4's way because he might not put up that big of a fight.
And, you know what? Do what you got to do, but you're costing yourself picks every Saturday that he's playing, to be honest with you. This is a guy who thought by many at the beginning of this year and even somewhat into this season was cornerback number 1 coming out of college. Surefire first-round pick. You see him slowly starting to slip down draft boards, and I can only imagine it's going to get worse if he continues to play like this. And he's going to have a lot of, in my opinion, again, I'm not huge on X's and O's. I know Tavares knows much more about football than I do. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I surely don't know. But I can only speculate based off of what I watch. I feel like he's going to have a lot of questions to answer in those draft rooms. I think a lot of teams are going to have a lot of things they want to know from him and why things have gone this way. If he does indeed even come out now. Because, like I said, there's a chance, I think, if he plays like this, like he has the past couple of weeks for the rest of the season, he's going to slip to be he's going to be a mid-2 round guy, which, is still plenty high enough. That'd be awesome. But is that what he wants? Does he want to be a first-round guy? Is he going to be mad when he gets a mid-second round grade? I don't know. It's just something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Well, if he comes back, there's one thing for certain. He's got to be better. Last week, Gene and I were asked, I asked Gene, of all the guys that are out there that you're surprised haven't got more playing time, who are you the most surprised on defense? And, one of his answers was Big Marvin Wilson. And it finally looked like he was able to get some playing time on Saturday. And to me, now that this season, I don't want to say is a lost cause because you do still have that bowl streak to play for. It's not completely lost. But now that this season's not nearly what you thought it would be, you're not playing for a title, you're not playing for a playoff spot, you're not playing for the division, you're playing for pride in the bowl streak. Marvin Wilson is a guy that, to me, it made no sense that until now didn't get as many reps as you wanted. Because I think we all know he's a guy he's a future, to borrow a term, franchise player. And the more that you can get him in now, the earlier he can be a monster next year.
Well, I feel that way just about all the freshmen, to be honest with you. I think, I know I saw somebody ask Jimbo a question. Jimbo, after DJ muffs that punt, do you have any thought about replacing him? And he said, well, who am I going to replace him with? First off, not a lot of other people I can throw out there. But second, listen, the only way that DJ is going to find and figure out how and when is the correct time to field punts and call a fair catch and let it go is by going out there and taking in-game reps. That's just it. So I'm cool with it because you saw what he can do when he fields the punt correctly. Maybe not even correctly. Just fields the punt and has a little bit of room. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, he almost broke. He had about 3 yards of space when he caught that one punt and almost broke it. It's not, to me, it's not even close. But between him and Tavares, unless DJ just goes out there and is dropping one out of every 3 or 4 punts, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, guys like you said, Hamza Nasruddin, Stanford Samuels, Marvin Wilson, a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. I really, really, really like Hamza. I like him a lot. Now, granted, that was a really boneheaded mistake near the end of that first half. But again, these are things that are just going to have to be worked through in a game. And when you're 3-5 already, it doesn't, to me as a fan, I would rather them be out there and make a mistake or two that keeps us from maybe losing by 10 and we lose by 14 instead. So be it.
Well, I think the one thing you're missing when it comes to that DJ Matthews argument is it's one thing when a true freshman messes up once. And granted, it looked like it could be a key situation in the game. Everybody, to a certain point, you just kind of chuckled at that moment because you're just like, well, what else could happen? How else could they go about this wrong? But it's one thing entirely when a true freshman fielding one of his first punts in college muffs it. It's completely a different thing when a guy who's an experienced veteran who's been doing this all season continues to go out and do it.
Well, Tavares only muffed one. That's not true. He missed a couple, but he only lost one. And his big problem is that he got to this point. I think he was a guy who maybe read social media too much because there was a point in time where he would just fair catch everything and people ripped him for it. Unless there's guys in house who are telling him, Tavares, you got to start returning kicks, which there probably is. But, I mean, there came a point then all of a sudden where all he wants to do, it doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter if the ball's going inside the 5-yard line. He's returning it. You saw it at Boston College. You saw him end up trying to field that punt as well, bounces off, fumbles it. That's fine. But he just never really looked like he wanted to be the guy at punt returner either. He kind of seemed like it's like, why am I out here? And he doesn't have a ton of experience besides in high school of doing that. So I understand, listen, punt returning is incredibly hard. The average person doesn't realize how hard it is to go back there and return a punt that's blasted into the air. I mean, it's really tough to even catch the ball. Granted, to then catch it and analyze where you're at in the field and try to make a play. So I understand that mistakes are going to be made there, but you wish Florida State had something that was a little bit more reliable, especially when you're in tight situations virtually every week. But again, in my opinion, I would much rather roll with DJ Matthews, especially where we are at this point in the season, and especially with how Florida State's offense is when you really could use a special team spark.
Well, yeah, you certainly have to. It is a hard job, but you know what isn't hard? Heading on over to happy hour with our friends at For the Table. Madison Social Central Township, all there from 4 to 7 today. It's 3 different locations. It's the same great experience, all there right in the heart of College Town. 3 different atmospheres, one great deal. When we come back, we're putting a ball on this thing. Here on Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Of course, getting ready to wrap it up here, but did want to let you know if you're in Tallahassee tonight, you should join myself, Gene, Jeff Cameron, Tom Lang. We're all going to be at Ology Brewing Company here in Tallahassee for the Man Cave Show. And last week we were at Deep Brewing Company. We had ourselves a great time out there. And the folks at Ology have been nice enough to open their doors to us. So can't wait for that. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. It's actually my first time going out to Ology. So I'm excited to go out there, see it. And, of course, the great craft breweries that are here in Tallahassee. Supporting local, having a good time doing it. Make sure you're grabbing a brew, having a good time, and heading on over there with us. Wrapping it up, it's been a whole Florida State-Clemson show, and that's one thing I do think that's interesting about this game. Even when Florida State's 3-5 and Clemson's still the number 4 team in the country, and it looks like the gap's going to be pretty wide this season, here you are on Tuesday of this game week, and you can still just do nothing but talk about it. I think that's a testament to what this game's become and how much it still means for the league, for the ACC, and for these two fan bases who really, really always want to get this win. Always a fun game, always a fun time, always a fun atmosphere, whether it's up there or down here. And another chance, like I said, for the first time really in the Jimbo Fisher era, instead of being, well, you're just kind of the second team here, you're the underdog, but if you win, you can make some noise. Not this time around. It's spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. It's what you got left to do. It's what you got left to play for. Can you go out? Can you look competent? Can you look like you care? And most importantly, can you deliver situationally if you're Florida State?
Yeah, I think this game for Florida State is big just inside of ACC recruiting, too. It's just, when you're this, it's almost, there's something to be said almost when you can still win games when things have gone this bad for you and your season's this bad. If you can still go and beat an elite Clemson team, it shows that things still aren't that far off and you still have the pieces to be good quickly. I think it's the same thing with Florida, honestly, because it's like a lot of recruits felt about the Miami game. Had Florida State been able to squeak that out in what had been a rather terrible year for FSU, I think a lot of recruits would cease to find Miami, take them fully serious until they were able to break that streak against Florida State. There's something to be said for those things kind of happening, and I think it'll be big as well when you look ahead to Florida. The little streak Florida State's got going on there with them as well. I know both teams are terrible, but it's just one of those things where when the other side gets a little taste of what the other side's had for a few years, it injects some life into recruiting and the fans and all that kinds of stuff, especially when you're still fighting for really Florida State might be for a bowl game. So it's just something to look forward to. Again, the season hasn't gone the way we wanted it to, but you can only make the best of what's left.
Yep. So get hyped for 3-5 Florida State versus number 4 Clemson. It could be fun. That's all I'm saying. You ever seen that sign on College Game Day? I just hope both teams have fun. I just hope both teams have fun. Let's go out there. Let's have a good football game. Because I don't think a blowout helps anybody. I mean, if Clemson blows out Florida State, they should blow out Florida State. Florida State's 3-5. If they end up getting blown out, Florida State, you know what? Doesn't help you recruiting-wise. You mentioned that. I think just playing a close game, just hanging in with Clemson, shows enough in recruiting to say, hey, these guys are still talented. They can still do what they need to do. Drew, my thanks to you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys for listening. Mike and Mike's up next. 97.9 ESPN Radio.
After looking at the film from the Syracuse game, again, proud of our guys to overcome and play a great game. Syracuse has had a great year so far, very good team. Played some great games against Clemson, of course, and LSU and everybody else. They've had a great year. A very tough team to defend. Our defense did a really nice job in a lot of areas. Well, we got to get better on both sides. I think the biggest disappointment for us on both sides is probably third down on our efficiency on offense and their efficiency on defense. Got to do a better job of getting off the field and staying on the field. in that regard, but we competed very well in the game. Not always with, like I say, made mistakes. Again, still didn't play as well as we want to play, but kept playing and played the next play. Areas which we did, created big plays on offense and finished plays, got points. In that regard, Cam had some. We had some big passes. Hit one big early in the first drive. Made some good plays there. Got to learn to close out a little better on offense. Hopefully could have ran that football out and got a first down and ended that clock. But the defense held up and they got some plays. But great effort by Derwin at the end of the game, which I didn't realize at the time until he come over. He got a piece of that field goal and on the block right there. So it was a very good effort. Our guys played extremely hard, competed well. It's a great win. It's getting over a hump, and hopefully you can build on that. We better build on it quick because we play a great team this week. Play one of the top 4 teams in the country. Clemson's playing very well. Come off a big win against North Carolina State, who we know is a very good team. Played very well. We had a great game with also. So they've been in some battles all year. Clemson has. They seem to always be pulling them out, doing a great job. Dabo does a great job. Quarterback can run. Does a great job running the football big and physical. The receivers are fast. Good young backs. Defensively, their front's outstanding. Linebackers are big and physical. Secondary's athletic. So and kicking game, they're always very good. So we need to learn from what we did, hopefully build some confidence. Again, ran the football well at times, created big plays on offense. Got to get better on third down, but we scored points, moved the football, had some long drives, had some short drives. But getting big plays, you're going to do that. Defensively, again, handling that whole passing game and the quarterback run game. Had some plays on the quarterback late and just had guys in the hole and just missed him. And had guys there to do it and just got to play better there. But play a little smarter, play a little better. Some of those young guys getting experience, I think, will be critical in the games, and so they can continue to play better. But, excited about the way they played and competed in the game, and it was a good win. Questions?
Jimbo, looking at the film, how did Hamsa grade out? Because he played a majority of the game.
Played solidly. Had a couple. I made some real nice tackles. He missed a couple. He had a quarterback in the hole one time that should have been about a 4-yard loss. It became about a 20-yard gain, and he's right there to make the play and took his eyes off, and he's right there. But then he turns around and bats his long arms, defends balls. Made a great play down there to knock a ball out and tries to throw it back in bounds. But that's all part of experience. You got to go back in there. There's some instincts there to be able to do that. At the same time, you say, why would you do that? But sometimes he's saying, well, I can throw it in there. I mean, there's some things just how to play in the situations, but very talented guy, very, very gifted guy, and is now learning our scheme and what goes on and how to play in the game, but very proud, and he's a physical guy. Again, he does a great job on special teams. He's getting better and better. Going to be a heck of a player.
And is that what, DJ had there's no reason to try to return that ball there with that time in the clock. Decision. Is that the stuff where they get that experience that you can't really get in practice?
Well, we're going to say you get it in practice and you do it, but say you go out there in the game and do it and you want to go make plays, you got to play intelligently, and that was not a smart decision right there. And there's times you want to go do too much. That's what I say. And you want to do this and you want to make the smart plays. If you make the smart right plays, your ability will take over, and hopefully experience you learn from, and that's what you find out. Now will they repeat those mistakes? You coached them in it before, but they went out and did them. Okay, you coach them in it again. You make sure they do it. Hope they don't repeat them. And if they do, then you have to make adjustments. But at the same time, those guys shouldn't, and I think they're going to be outstanding players.
Jimbo, for your freshmen, this week will be the first time they've really been in this type of atmosphere, this many people that are against them. How do you sort of prepare for that? No,
you just go play. You block it out. You can't worry about it. And you have your crowd noise and all that, but you got to experience that too. You got to go through it.
Jimbo, Clemson's pass rush, their sack numbers are obviously really impressive.
33 sacks.
How do they? Is it mostly the front four, or do they bring pressure from?
They bring pressure, but they're front four. A lot of us are front four. I mean, they got great inside push guys. Wilkins and Lawrence are both excellent. And Wilkins go in and out. Farrell and Bryant and all those guys are all natural pass rushers. They're really good guys. Will be high draft pick guys, and then they bring pressure with it. So it's a mixture.
You guys have had a lot of great games with Clemson in your tenure here. And
I've just been watching them all. I've been some phenomenal ones. High-scoring ones, low-scoring ones. I mean, we've won some shootouts, 49-38, and we won 51-something, and then 23-17, 23-13, 16. I mean, there's been some phenomenal games.
Going on that theme, can you kind of elaborate on, how this rivalry has helped shape the rise of the ACC and, what Clemson's rise has meant to the conference as a whole?
Oh, I think it has. I think their rises came from their commitment to football. I think they've been committed, but their administration has done a tremendous job of spending and doing and building, and not just building, but all the things behind the scenes to do it. I know their AD very well. And he's done a great job, and Dabo's done a great job. Their vision to do things, and then they got good players and got good tradition. I think us and them have, in the beginning, have pushed that, but now this league has become Miami's so great. You see NC State playing so well. Virginia Tech has had great tradition. Pitt and all those guys, all those people are doing a great job. Louisville, I mean, you just go down Georgia Tech. I mean, you go through the history of it up and down, and our league gets better and better, and Clemson has been a huge part. And right now, they've done a great job.
Jimbo, Derek Kelly got a little banged up. Is he going to be able to come back this week?
We'll wait and see. I'm not going to talk personnel or injuries till I know more about it. We'll see.
Okay. I guess Auden just was a game-time decision, just wasn't ready to go because it looked like he warmed up.
He wasn't ready to go.
Okay. Cam was named ACC Back of the Week and ACC Freshman of the Week. Mm-hmm. Is he starting to I don't want to say figure it out because he's been good since he started playing, but can he become that special dynamic player?
We'll see in time if he keeps working. I mean, there's still lots of things he has to work on. There's still a lot of little things in open field running and things that he can even still improve on. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of little details in his game that as he learns what to do and how to do it that we even do better. But he's a dynamic player and has the ability to be a really good player. I mean, we'll find that would be determined by how hard he works and how much he keeps progressing and where he's at. But he can do some really good things.
Do refs just not see horse collars?
I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. I mean,
do these have to be brought down? Is that
I'm not sure exactly. We're going to get an interpretation. And I ask those things all the time, exactly how you calling them. So I don't know if it is or not.
Coach, that was actually going to be my question, too, on the horse collar. It seems like that's a play that's been coming up through the past few years, and it hasn't been called historically. Is that something that maybe you'd like to see referees take a bigger look at moving forward?
What they call is what we'll go by. That's out of my control. I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy. You have to ask them how they're going to call it or what they're going to call. I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I'm not saying they were right or wrong. So if they call it, they call it. If they don't, they don't.
I guess shifting gears, Josh Sweat seems to be performing at a really high level middle of the season. What have you kind of seen from him as far as the light?
Consistency and understanding what the scheme is and doing a great job in the run. I mean, that's where pass rush, he got some scheme, he got some pressures and things, but he's done a great job in the run, especially how we had him playing. His strength and power allows him to do that. Derek Nottie also did a great job inside in that regard. You saw Derwin in the game. I thought Derwin was outstanding in a lot of areas in that game, so some of those guys have played. But Josh is really evolving into a really good player. I mean, complete player, and understanding his role and how to play consistent every week, how to prepare, what he's got to do weekly to be in position to, mentally, physically to make the plays he has to make.
Jimbo, you weren't real happy, obviously, with the third and long conversions. They had a lot of them in the last game. After looking at the films, some tendencies, some things you saw you could fix?
No, just breakdowns. Guys should have had some good calls, and we physically missed some things, and then they made a couple good throws and a couple good catches. And, I mean, you're in position to make plays, and you got to make plays. The ball's there, and you're in man under, or now throwing a comeback route underneath. It should never get there. I mean, so technique. We have to do a better job making sure we teach them exactly how we want the technique and then how they got to apply it. And knowing you can't give up the inside. When you're in man under, you can't give up an inside route, and you got to block that off. So we got to help them in technique, how to get them lined up, and make sure they do that.
And in the same sense, offensively, what are some things that are kind of hindering you guys from staying on the field on third down?
Well, I mean, third down, we had a couple protection breakdowns, had a couple route breakdowns. Guys didn't run the right route. James could have had one or two, and then we had a couple short yardages. We missed a block. We didn't block down with a receiver on a sweep that we would have had one, and then the fumble snap at the end, we didn't get up, and he's got to get up under there. That's a combination of both. A sneak, when they get wedged down in there, is one of the hardest things to execute, believe that or not. Getting the snap and getting up in there because of the leverage the center has to get, and you as a quarterback got to get down. So just all those fundamental things. I mean, like I said, for 3 games before that, we were doing pretty well. Just got to go back and make sure we're executing what we call, and hopefully as we get some of these older wideouts back and techniques and things we can do, it'll help us out.
All right, we'll go to the phone. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Jimbo, how you doing?
Hey, Chris, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I was watching the game on Saturday, and there's a fact that I found out, one of the statistics, that we haven't scored a touchdown in the third quarter. Why is that? What's been the issue in third quarter, not getting a touchdown?
I guess they've been stopped. I guess they got a wall up down there. No, I don't know. It's got to convert coming out. We've hit some. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that was true. I didn't realize that as much as you said. We come out and got some field goals, got some nice drives to start the half, got to score a touchdown. Just got to finish, make some halftime adjustments, and then go out and execute.
And talk about Charlie Bryant. What type of quarterback is he? Is he better than Deshaun Watson last year, or are they both?
Well, listen, hold on. You can say he's better than Deshaun Watson now. That's a big statement. But at the same time, he's unbelievably productive. I mean, this guy has made a lot of runs. At the end of that game, he's their leading rusher. I mean, he's 220 pounds. He's 6'4". He's like a big tailback. And he's making throws, he's making plays, and he's leading them to win. So, in essence, when you say better than Deshaun Watson, he's doing the same thing. His record's the same. And as a quarterback, that's one of the things you count on. Guys making plays, doing things. And I know that's big praise, but this guy's a heck of a football player.
Thanks, Jimbo. Good luck.
Thank you.
Jimbo, looking back, and I know when DeAndre went down, obviously, the hope is that everybody picks their game up and you move on. But looking back, do you feel like it took this team a while to just kind of recover emotionally from losing?
I don't think it's that. I think we played good teams. I think you had a young quarterback, and I think you had receivers go down. I mean, you had when Auden Tate's going down in that second game, he's having a game of his career. And we're driving, moving the football like crazy, and all of a sudden you lose him. Keith Gavin hadn't played very much, so you got those guys in deal. Then defensively, you start, hopefully you can step up and do some things. Then your young backs are learning. Patrick's the first time he's a starter. Then you lose Dickerson. You lose 2 or 3 of your backup linemen. It's not an excuse, but I mean that chemistry and that tenacity right there, where you're going with the ball, what you can do, what they can do compared to what James could do at that time. But we had opportunities, and that's where you hoped as a team that, you could get the one more stop or the one more play. So it's all a combination of everything.
Jim, on that same token, how beneficial would it have been to play a game in between Alabama and
I think it's been very
NC State?
beneficial. I think because you gain confidence, you gain numbers, that's what I keep saying is the big thing is, and I know it's hard to, people don't believe this, but at the same time, when you go win a couple games early and all of a sudden you get on the field and you win and you start to feel better about yourself, it allows you to have confidence, and a lot of times that's what carries you through, and confidence is a very critical thing. So that could have been. We don't know. You really don't know because you never had them. So you can't say that for sure, but that's one of the reasons you like to play those kind of games right there, where hopefully that you can have success in, but that doesn't guarantee it either. You still got to go out and play.
And you've been coaching against Dabo now for, I guess, 8 years. Y'all both been in the league at the same time. When did you see the Clemson program starting to rise to this? Did you see it coming 2010?
Oh, they always had good players. I mean, you go back and look. They were supposed to beat us in 10. They had it. They had the great. And then we won 11. They slept. But 12, they were coming in and they had everybody back. And then we won 49-38. And then 13 we hit it, 14 they hit it. Now 15 was a possession game up there, which is a great game. I just got done watching. We missed, if you think about it, we missed a 4th and 1, a 3rd and 1, and a 4th and 1. And then they were able to score 16-13 with 6 minutes to go in the game. And then last year 37-34, back and forth in the shootout and what we were doing. But I've known that. And the last 3, but their commitment, I mean, building the facilities, building things they've done, the commitment to coaches and Dabo and getting his players. I mean, he's done a great job. He's a great coach. He adjusts and he's done things, and they've added to the program. They've created the surrounding things around and the commitment they've had, and they're taking off. And they've always had great tradition. So, I mean, I've felt this all along. Even when we were winning those games, they were a tremendous program. We were just fortunate enough to make the one more play, and lately, the last 2 years, they've made the one more play. So, I mean, it's kind of nip and tuck, but they've done a great job in their commitment to things and their investment.
Jimbo, you said on that last play, Derwin got a piece of the block on the field goal. Matthew Thomas, first field goal attempt, got a block. Just on the 2 blocks, something you guys saw on film to take advantage, or?
No, something we work on every day. I mean, we were always trying with punts. I think we blocked 2 punts now, and that's 2 field goals that we've gotten a hand on. So, I mean, that's something that we work religiously on daily. And sometimes when those things come, you get them. Sometimes they don't. I mean, but you just got to keep practicing. We think we have the best opportunity, and that's something we're always committed to doing.
For your guys, especially some of the seniors, is this game, could it be an opportunity for them to show that they're still capable of coming together and being the team that they expected to be?
I don't know about that. I think not just the seniors. I think in general, you better, because you're playing a great team and their home field. You better be ready to play and play a great game. Not just so that you got to compete. And there's a lot on the line as far as what we have for pride and the things that go on, and how you want to be perceived yourself of any time you play, how hard you play, how well you play, and you want to improve your stock. In your history of what you provide for the young players here as an example of how to compete and do things well.
You just got done facing Syracuse with Dino in his second year.
Mm-hmm.
Mark's doing a good job in his second year at Miami. Just in building a program, how important is that second year in terms of building stuff?
I think they all are. I mean, it's not just what the second year is. It's what your plan is, and then how they're implemented, and what the people give you the pieces to put in place. And it seems like they are. Their players, they're big, stronger. Like I say, think of the games they played this year. I mean, they've beaten Clemson. Miami was 20-19 with 3 minutes to go, and had 4 turnovers. They had 4 turnovers in that game. LSU was 28-26 or 26-24 with 2 or 3 minutes to go in the game at LSU. And that game was at Miami, and the other one was at their home place. I mean, they've played some great football. You look at how they play; they're a very good football team. Defensively, offensively, they've done a great job. And the scheme they have, the quarterback does a great job. They had 2 experienced wideouts, and Dino's a good football coach. So I mean, it is very important, not just your second year, but any year. But you keep seeing progression and things that you have to be successful. Just like when we had here, we needed an indoor, we needed a dorm, we needed to be able to help recruiting. All those things made a big difference in your progression, but you can't ever stop. You got to keep pushing. I'm not saying that here. I'm saying anywhere in your program, what's the next step you got to take? And if you ever do, you're going to get passed up, and you got to keep growing.
Jimbo, you guys have gone up to Clemson a couple times with backup quarterbacks where maybe people might have expected you guys to have a tough time, but you played really good games, had the lead.
35-30 and 23-13. It was 16-13.
And had the lead in that game. What's the key to the mentality to go into a situation like that?
You got to be ready to compete. You understand who you're playing. Listen, they ain't gonna give you anything. You got to go earn everything, and you better have your sleeves rolled up, better have your helmet buckled tight, and be ready to play. They're a great team, a great program. You're in the secret. You got to go play. Hopefully play well and play intelligently.
Kind of off topic a little bit. Did you see what Jalen and A.J. Green got into yesterday? And what did he bring that to the practice field when he was here?
I didn't know. I don't know what happened.
Oh, he got into a skirmish, and I guess A.J. Green got fed up with him and slammed him to the ground and started punching him because he was so mad at him. I don't know if Jalen brought that out in people, but was he that kind of guy on the practice field?
Practice every day. Every play to him was like intense, focused. The things I talk about, I love. I mean, every play he played, he would embarrass you if you didn't play well in practice. He would completely embarrass you. He didn't care if it was his buddy, he didn't care if it was his friend, he didn't care if it was anybody. He was in that mold with Telvin and Jameis and Joyner and those guys, Freeman, Wilder. I mean, those guys would embarrass you. If you didn't want to play, good. I'll beat your brains in that day. And he would embarrass you. I mean, he would play his tail off every day. Journey, I mean, all those guys did. And he had that same mentality every day. His competitive nature was crazy.
Was he like that from day one, even from stepping into that secondary with those guys?
Yep. Because he knew he had to be.
Yeah.
They made him be. And then he already had that in him too. He was naturally that way.
And maybe not to that degree, but with your young guys, do you see some of that in some of your young guys?
Hopefully some. I mean, not to some of that extent. He was one of the most special ones probably I've ever had like that. But some other guys at other places. But you see some guys that are really like that do a good job. But we'll see in time if it carries on. I mean, he was like that every day. Every day. It didn't matter. Every time you practice, every drill you did, everything you did, those guys had an unbelievable just drive. Some guys have that, and some guys have good drive. I mean, he was in that upper 1%, in my opinion.
Just said was there ever a time on the practice field where he really got under Kelvin or another player's?
Whatever on the same team. Oh, yeah. And people got under his. But he got it right back. Them guys on the other side didn't back up. There were guys on the other side did the same way. They got under each other's skin. I mean, those guys, that would happen daily. That stuff happened daily.
Anything to trigger a fight?
Yeah, all the time. They did it all the time. Not from him. I mean, other guys. I mean, them guys. You had alpha. They were a lot of alpha males in that group, and they went at it hard.
Jimbo, the players after the game said that they respect the bowl streak and they really want to keep it going, but they also understand they can't focus on that. What's the balance there? How do you?
Well, that's your goal. I mean, but if you sit and dwell on the outcome of a game, it's like I say all the time. If you sit and dwell on the score, you forget to play the game. You got to play. You got to prepare. That can't be. You can't let that paralyze you. I mean, as I said, I said it's a burden you carry. It's part of why you want to come here. We've had great history. We've had great tradition. You've had great longevity. I mean, you've had great everything, and that's one of the reasons that attract you here. You win. We're successful. There's a way we do things, but you can't let that paralyze. You got to go play and do the things you got to do to be successful, and practice that way and understand that. Compete your tail off, and if you're not, go back and do it again, and not feel like, okay, if I didn't do that, should I walk away? I mean, you can't. And when you're in it like that as a player, or coach, anything else, that's what you have to do. And that's any game you play. I always say, don't look at the scoreboard. That sounds crazy. Well, no, play the next play. You understand the situation and that, but just concentrate on what you got to do. I always say, do you ever hear Tiger Woods say? They asked him what he was thinking about on that putt when was at the PGA. Had a bad leg and he made that putt. What were you thinking about? I was thinking about taking my putter back, the line I had to hit, and had what speed I had to hit and hit. You wouldn't think. I mean, it meant that wasn't on my mind. And people have a hard time fathoming that if you're not in it. If you think about that, that's the guys who fail. The guys who think about what they got to do at that particular time are the guys that succeed.
Jim, I know you're a big advocate of having a football-only complex. What are some other commitments that you would like to see the program kind of make?
Well, it's isn't the time to get into all that, but I mean, you have to do that. I mean, for development and commitment to things you have, and those things are a major deal. As unfortunately in this business, when you get into the facilities business, you're never out of it. You're never out of development. Your company can never quit growing. Whether it's that or behind the scenes things, or support staff, all that can never happen. It can never go away. If it does, people fly by you like crazy. And there's numerous examples across this country. And if you don't understand that, you're missing the boat. Now, it all has to be relative to what you can do, when you can do it, and everything else. But at the same time, if you don't, it can pass you by very, very quickly.
Anything else for Coach?
Thank you.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.